back again, guys. So thank you very much. We've got 3 sections coming up for you. We're going to start off, we spoke this morning in the keynote briefly about the interface changes that are coming about as part of our rebranding, but Paul Stanton is coming up next. He's going to be giving you a quick tour of the control centre, of Jadu Connect, just to highlight where we've made things better and really hammer home those benefits of us updating that user interface. Following that, we've got a quick overview of some of the changing themes on our roadmap and the exciting work that's coming up there. And then just to round things off, we're going to look at feature requests. That's an ongoing theme of work that we've been endeavouring to improve. And we want to show you what we've got planned next. So, handing over to Paul.
That feels like a long walk. Good afternoon, everybody. So it's quite interesting seeing Suraju's and Andy's session earlier on, where we had the progression of the Jadu logo over the years. And kind of tied to each one of those changes has been the opportunity for us to dramatically improve our interface in new and exciting ways. And we have our beautiful new branding that you've seen earlier. And this is prime time for us to get the crayons out and allow that inspiration, the new brand, to kind of influence the software and leak in without making too drastic a change. We had to restrain ourselves somewhat so that while the software might look dramatically different if you were to put it side by side, it's still the same products. Even as you see the products merging together, and it might have a new name, but everything's still where you last saw it. Everything's where you last put it down. You don't have to learn how to do your jobs again. You can get in, get out, get your tasks done. It might look a little bit nicer, or a lot nicer, if you ask me, but you still can do your jobs in the same way. You don't have to retrain anyone. You don't have to retake any screenshots if you don't want to. If you have your own documentation that you've written against Jadu to help your colleagues do their jobs, they should be able to use that against the new versions of the software and still be able to figure out what's going on. As you see, the Forms products might now magically appear in your CMS if you didn't have it before in Jadu Central. You can go into that section and you should be able to find your way around. The software is consistent. Whether you bounce between Central and Connect, you should be able to find out where you are and where you're going. So you see the new logos in that corner and the new colors bleeding into that navigation. But otherwise, it's the same. It just looks a lot nicer. But you've probably already started playing a little mental game to spot the difference. And there are some changes that are maybe a bit more subtle, but you would only really notice them if you did compare them side by side. But that's why I'm here to kind of point out those changes. So the text size has been increased in a lot of places. Links are stronger, more obvious. Button controls, interactive controls like form fields, checkboxes, everything is larger, and that's to meet the current accessibility guidelines. The hit areas of interactive things has to be larger to be able to hit it, whether using a mouse, a keyboard, other motion devices, or voice control. Modals are larger. In a lot of places, the content inside them is given more space to breathe. The focus states, as you've probably seen in kind of iterative releases, that is now stronger, that black on yellow, required for accessibility reasons. The common actions are now kind of very consistent in that corner. So if you are in an interface, and let's face it, some of our interfaces have a lot of things that you can do on any given page. We try to consolidate those common actions in that button there. Homepage Designer has had quite a bit of love over the last few releases, not just this one. The draggable elements have had keyboard support added to them, so you don't need to use a mouse if you don't or can't use one. You can still go into a home page, move your blocks about, move them up and down rows, add them from that list of available widgets without ever touching that mouse. We've added quick filtering to widgets, so if you have a lot of widgets, a lot of custom ones, which I know some of you have. You can quickly search and filter that list, which is great. If you know that you want to add a map, but you don't want to have to scroll and find it, you can quickly do that. We've increased the understandability of help text in a lot of places. This example here, I believe, came through Hello Next from, I want to say, Nathan at Cardini Shy, but also Alison, who I believe is in the room. She suggested a support ticket for how things are explained when you're deleting content. So here, you're picking from a page, you have that concept of a document, and a document has pages. If you want to delete a page, it wasn't clear before whether you're deleting that page or you're deleting that document. We had a similar issue in downloads, where if you delete a download container, it will delete your files. Previously, it wasn't clearly explained. That was rightly raised to us through our support channels. So it's just a text change, isn't it? But a very important one. If you're deleting that document, you need to know the impact. So there's a few places around the software where we've improved that messaging. This effort to improve the interface has allowed us to revisit some of the, I call them dusty corners of the software, the places where you might either never visit or you might only visit once a year when you're trying to do something. And they're the common areas that get overlooked when we're making iterative improvements. We kind of have our front of house, but then these random pieces of functionality like content history for viewing track changes. To compare that to the existing one, this admittedly got missed last time. So the version on the right is quite old styling. The text size is too small. The modal's too narrow. You can see a slight layout bug. So we really took the time in this effort to revisit these places, make sure that it was an end-to-end process. Our testers and QA team across all the product teams have scrutinized every area of the software, and it's been a phenomenal task for them. It's all well and good for me to come and start throwing colors about, but there's a team of people that have to check every single aspect of the software and make sure that it meets the design system guidelines, it meets accessibility guidelines, and it's consistent once you get it into your hands. The sign-in experiences between previously CMS, XFP, and CXM, now Central and Connect, they were different before. Two different products, slightly different experiences. They have been brought closer together now so that the sign-in experience is more consistent as you drift between Connect and Central. The stars are gone. They were a bit Marmite. Some people loved them, some people hated them. If you have, or when you have Jadu Connect, you're able to rebrand that somewhat. You're able to add your own organization colors. That's still there. There's not a lot of hot pink out there in your sector. Maybe there should be more. I don't know. But if that's your brand colors, you can apply that. That will still be reflected on Jadu Connect. If you have additional sign-in methods, they will still appear in this interface as they have done before. Someone spoiled it. If you've gone through multiple releases of any Jadu products, you'll know that we always try and improve the accessibility with everything we do. Every release has usually got something in there that fixes something or improves something, especially in terms of accessibility. And this is no different. We've improved the little things like the character count for text array fields that have character limits. This, as you're typing, it just counts down, right? Quite simple functionality, but it's been rewritten so that it communicates with assistive technology through the use of ARIA live regions and visually warns you when you're getting close to that character limit. The date picker has been completely ripped out and replaced with an accessible one that works with keyboard support, works with screen readers and assistive technology. Tooltips, which display when you hover over an element, have been replaced, you're probably getting the idea now, with an accessible version that works on touchscreen devices, which don't have a hover event. So if you tap on an element, it will still display that additional information. That again came through Hello Next. The contrast of elements, this layout is a great example of that. The left-hand column showing your available elements compared to the right-hand column, this was a sea of white before. You had to kind of really know where you want it to be. If you're dragging an element, it was hard for us to communicate where you can drag those elements in. So we use the additional contrast here, the white boxes. You know where you are, what can be dragged in, and as you move in, it will show you clearly where these blocks can go. This pattern is used quite extensively through our software. We call it the settings sidebar. It's one of, I think, 9 different interface patterns that we have in our software. You'll have seen Homepage Designer use the same one. The areas that we have drag and drop are very difficult to make accessible, but we do it. We spend a lot of time and effort making sure that they work with keyboard, those elements can be dragged in, dropped without the need to use complex mouse gestures. And we can't wait to really get it in your hands. We released a test version. I think Sarah passed that out to a few people. You've seen the feedback we've got there. And yeah, I can't wait for you to get it and see it. Who do we pass on to next?
I'll take the next few bits.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Paul. Oh gosh, that's a bit noisy, wasn't it? So we just got a few notes, just recapping things that we were mentioned early by Andy Perkins. So because we're making some quite big changes in Jadu Central, we're not going to be offering a rollback via deployer. There's going to be an updated version of deployer. That's only for this one transition from, it would be CMS 21 up to Jadu Central. And so we will be, don't worry, we've got plans in place for how we're going to handle that, but just letting you know that via deployer, there won't be the rollback button for that one. In terms of the classic form builder, so we've previously given you version numbers based on the expected releases of XFP. We'll be passing over updated release numbers based on Jadu Central's new versioning. But for this first version of Jadu Central 1.0.0 and for a number of releases after that, there will still be the classic form builder. If you are in the process of migrating your forms between the classic form builder and the updated form builder, don't worry, it will still be there. Everything will still function. And the final one was, Andy did mention this morning, rollout conversations. So we'll be starting our rollout conversations in August, just to get us over the summer holidays. We're looking for early adopters, so if you would like to be part of that first cohort of customers that go live with the updated version, please let us know. We're really excited to be able to bring this new version to you. Next item, roadmap. So we have been having lots of conversations with customers recently, and we are bringing you guys more than ever into our development processes, into our discovery processes to make our software the best it can be for you. In terms of our features, all of our features are geared towards making your life easier, making the life of your customers easier and your colleagues in whichever service is using Jadu software. We've got 4 big items coming onto our roadmap, which I don't think we've necessarily spoken about these before. So to fill you in, we've got smart mappings, which Andy Perkins mentioned this morning. We've got visual workflow, which is a major change coming in Jadu Connect. Single sign-on, where we have some changes happening, Jadu Central, but also in Jadu Connect, that's integration with SAML providers. And also for Jadu Connect reporting, improved reporting and looking at how we can get data out of that system. Our first of these is smart mapping, which is going to be a quick software demo provided by Andy Green. He's going to walk you through an early version of this software and demonstrate how this is going to work. And take it away.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, how do I press play?
Next one.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a bit loud. So I've got a video of it because I'm not brave enough to actually demo it. It is very much a research project at the moment. The idea is that from our conversations with customers gathering feedback, one of the sticking points is the fact that you've got the central product and you've got the Connect product, and the two should work closer together. So we went away and thought about how we could do that with the goal of making it easier to build forms that create, transition, and edit cases. So a typical workflow would be to start by building a case type. So we would build a case type, and then we would build our form, which would duplicate the effort. Smart mapping allow us to reduce that duplicated effort. So here I've got a case type for job applications. It's got about 23, 25 fields in it. All of those fields I would then need to go recreate in Central. So if I start by building a form, so I'm just going to go through the process of how this all works. So just creating a job application form. So let's do that a few minutes. It's worth mentioning that I'm doing this in real time. Normally in videos I would speed this up, but I just want to show how much it changes the process and how it actually makes it easier. So there's no video editing or trickery going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a page template. Standard stuff within our form software, but we've now got a new button called Admin, should say Central on there, but or Connect, which will load up a modal where I can then start to select fields from Connect. And when I click Create Questions, those fields will then be created in my page template. The forms or form software will decide on the best type of question based on the field type from Connect. At this point, it probably gets a little bit dull because I'm just going to go and create another 5 page templates for my form, just to show that it's kind of it's not just a simple form with 3 questions on it, but it's the whole 20-odd questions. So you can see how many times I make typos as I search for field types. So in here you can see we've got date questions, we've got drop-down questions. Just whilst you're watching that, the really nice thing about this is that because we're linking to the field in Connect, we can get updates from Connect when those field changes in there, so that we could pull through new options for drop-down list maybe. So, it's only 2 more page templates to go.
So Andy, the only bit you pre-built was the CXM.
Yeah, I started off with the case type and then just bringing this in through the form.
So you go through the process of building the
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're making everybody watch that out.
This is the last page template, and there is a couple of things on this page template which I do slightly differently to the other ones. So I'm bringing in those fields from the case type, but I can still edit those questions that are created. So in this particular case, I'm rewording the question text from disability to do you have a disability? So I still have that control over those questions within my form. I can also go and add additional options. In this case, it's adding an empty option for the drop-down, so please select. And you can also move questions around in the form. So here I'll add a section, and I'll drive that section off of the do you have a disability? So those questions which have been added to the form as still just a standard form question, and behave in the same way. We're not restricting how they work in any way. So just move those into. So last page template added. Now I add the page templates to the form. And then the really exciting stuff happens after that. I don't know, maybe. Okay, so with the pages added to the form, if I now go to set up the rule to go and create the job application, so using the standard rules designer, so we'll create job application rule, which will use the create case connect action. So because we've imported those questions from Connect, they're auto-mapped. So I don't have to go through any of the mapping process. We've got a link between the two, and we can see that they are auto-mapped at the end of it. So I think the video is about 6.5 minutes long, and I've just created a 5-page, 23-question form, mapped all the way through to the CXM in that time. So the goal of the project is to make it a lot easier and a lot quicker to build forms for your case types, and there's work still to be done on it. Just wanted to give you a glimpse of what we're looking to try and achieve. So just to go through what you've just seen, the changes in Jadu Connect will automatically be pulled down into your form, and the idea is to avoid duplicated effort, creating a case field, creating a form field. Yep.
Moving on. Oh. I feel bad for Paul now. Can we give Paul a clap? Bringing on next, we have Tom to talk us through single sign-on with SAML.
Cool. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to talk a bit about some of the stuff we're turning our attention to in the Connect team, and some of the things we've got in the pipeline. So starting with single sign-on. So we want to make it easier for users to sign into the product, removing the need to remember 2 sets of credentials. So we're proposing some changes to the sign-in process to look a bit like this and allow your staff users across the organisation to sign in with Active Directory credentials, for example, and to enable your end users to potentially sign in with Google or an identity provider that you're choosing. So slightly reworking the sign-in process, the user would now enter their email address as a first step. And then what we'd do is show them the sign-in options that are relevant to them. So crafting an experience that's either for end users, where you do only want to show them Google perhaps, and email and password. And then staff, you may only want to show Active Directory. You may also want to show them email and password as well. So that's a flavour of what we're looking at the moment. And then just to talk a little bit about sort of how it works behind the scenes. So initially, what we're looking to release will use the SAML protocol. So that's how the product will talk to an identity provider. And we believe that gives you quite a lot of flexibility in terms of what identity providers you can work with. Most identity services support SAML. And even where they don't, there are identity services like Microsoft's AD Azure, which allow you to effectively craft that journey. So you can you could link into an identity provider that only supports OAuth, for example. So you've got different options. You can go direct from Connect to the identity provider, or you could use one of these services that we're looking at here. In terms of setting users up, you still have to set your user up in Connect. And then when they try and log in with the third-party credentials, it will match on their email address, and the two user records will be matched, and they'll be able to sign in. One thing we want to look at as well in the future is having sort of out-of-the-box sort of switch-on integrations with Google and the more popular identity providers to sort of minimize the configuration that you guys would have to go through. So in terms of the benefits, it's just making it more seamless to sign in, not having to remember as many credentials. Also being able to administer users. So when people leave, you'll be able to administer them from one place rather than having to go into Connect and manage that. And I know when you've got lots of users, that becomes quite an overhead. Security as well. So speaking to a lot of you who are using, for example, Microsoft's Azure features, they have multi-factor authentication, so you can put that behind staff sign-in. And we'd also eventually be looking at putting MFA behind email and password as well, if you want to enable that. And then just using removing barriers for end user engagement. So we heard about Birmingham having 500,000 citizen accounts. So it's about making it more seamless and frictionless for them to be able to sign in. And also, if you guys want to be promoting the My Account functionality, you want that to be as smooth as possible. So we're looking at other small optimizations, like not having the user need to sign in twice on the registration flow, looking at ensuring that the email always gets delivered for when they need to register and verify their email address. So in terms of our progress with SAML, for the central public product, it's complete. Central administrator login is in testing, and with Connect, it's being developed at the moment. So moving on to a piece of work which we've alluded to earlier. Sarah and Suraj have alluded to this. So this is making the process of building a workflow more visual. So we've been speaking to a number of you, and we're still looking to engage with more customers to get your input and your feedback. So yeah, essentially, having spoken to some of you guys, we've figured that you all have different ways of building out your processes. Some of you are quite happy to document what you're building externally outside of the tool, using Visio and spreadsheets, and then going through and configuring the workflow. Others of you want to get more hands-on straight into the product and start designing your workflow in CXM. And essentially, we want to be able to enable both of those ways of working. And principally for us, that probably means making it more visual. So having some kind of drag and drop interface that you can engage with. We want to make it easier for you to test the workflows you've built. So when you've built something, you can get it in front of end users, the service area, quicker, get them to test it, and also spot some of the mistakes you might have made more easily before it even gets found by those end users. So, for example, you might have a duplicate rule, or you might have rules that conflict with each other. Because you've been building quickly, we want you to enable you to build services quickly, because that's one of the value, the main value you get from the product. Having spoken to you about how you put services live over the lockdown, over COVID. In addition to that, we've had feedback from you that a lot of you like to build, you're building in different ways. And so in an ideal world, you'd make a change. You wouldn't need to, you'd build it once in CXM and you'd be done. But actually what you're saying is the process with the service area is a back and forth process, and actually you're going back into CXM, having to make a change, then take it back to the service area. So we recognise that it's a messy process building this. And actually, when you go back to CXM to make a change, if you need to make a change to a status, for example, if that status has multiple transitions and rules attached to it already, going and identifying what those transitions and rules are is very difficult. And it's even more difficult if the service is already live. So we want to make it more visual so you can see what all of those interconnected parts are and be able to make those changes. Having spoken to you as well, we recognise you like or need to have documented what you've built. So we'd like to explore how we could export some of that workflow into a format that you can work with, so you can, a year down the line when you've got a service that's been live, you can come back to it and say, right, we need to make this change, and you're not starting from scratch. So if that's something that interests you, you want to feed back into that process, then please get in touch with us, and we'll give you ways of how you can communicate with us to feed into that. And then finally, something we've got lined up for this year, based on talking to you guys and hearing what you have to say about data and reporting, we want to meet some of the challenges that you've presented with us. So those are principally bulk data extraction, data about end users, and service area reporting. So there's three distinct parts there. In terms of bulk data extraction, it's about being able to use the data you've got and move it more meaningfully. So the feedback we've had is that there's different methods of doing that at the moment, using the API, using webhooks, the CSV export. It meets your needs, but it perhaps is more technically involved than it should be. So we recognise there's a balance here between giving you the raw data in the format that you want it so that you can work with it in a data warehouse and manipulate it how you like, versus taking away all of the burden of having to get your data team, your IT team into actually working with the data. And so we're interested in whether we could even build an integration with a reporting tool, one of the Microsoft suite, for example, to remove that need for configuration. So that's something we're looking into. And again, we'll be keen to work with you and specifically your data teams as to how they want to handle that data. So going back to my account and all of the citizen accounts that you have data on, you've said you want to be able to meaningfully report on what your citizens are doing. So how are they engaging with you, how often, and where are they doing it, all that sort of information. So we want you to be able to self-serve on that. And then finally, service area reporting. So this is when you've got a discrete team, a service area who wants to, who've got up and running, but perhaps the rest of the council is not there yet, and they need to be able to just meet their own reporting needs. Listening to you, we understand that it works, but perhaps there's a bit of hand-holding that's needed from the digital guys who've built the processes. So it's about making that more easy for the end users to be able to self-serve the data. That's it.
Hey guys, I'm back again. So again, this was mentioned this morning. This is the next big thing. Super early days. So what we're envisioning with this is something that's not the same as the forms in Jadu Central. This is a slightly different take on forms. This is looking at something that's very much tightly integrated with those Jadu Connect cases, built around workflow, built around offline working. So our idea at the moment is a SaaS form solution that can be deployed super quickly. So you're getting value from that product as soon as you can, deploying it into service areas, that there isn't a long time to get you from, I've bought this, to it's really delivering and we're getting return on investment. And repeating that theme from before, we're bringing people into this journey with us, and we want to know your guys' requirements. This is a process of discovery for us, and we need volunteers to take part in our research. So if you would fancy being a guinea pig for Jadu, we say thank you to everybody so far who has taken the time to have a conversation with us, who has spoken to us about their processes, walked us through how their team does business. This has been super influential in what we are presenting back to you at this academy, and it will be influential for academies going forward too. So I did have on here, please raise your hand, but I'm not sure if at this point before dinner that everybody's feeling that enthusiastic about singling themselves out. So if you are not, we will be hiding out at lunchtime, which I think is coming up just after this talk, in the atrium. There's a glass room up the stairs. We're all going to be sat there for questions and to take your details if you're feeling like you want to come and have a conversation with us about how your team does how your team builds forms, builds cases, your reporting needs in Jadu Connect. And this new idea of connect forms, so particularly around kind of like the need for your teams to be offline, if you've got any services that need offline working that's currently not being serviced, we'd love to hear about that. The final topic that we have some slides about today, before we get into questions, feature suggestions. So this was an ongoing topic of conversation. We've brought in a new tool, Hello Next, which I know a lot of you are now going to be signed up on. Previous feedback to us has been that the feature suggestions, the way that we managed those, it was like sending feedback into a black hole. And so we've brought Hello Next in to make that a lot more visible so that everybody in our community can see who's putting in what those requests are, can lend their support to requests that they haven't yet articulated but that resonate with them. And we are now seeing that those are really starting to drive our roadmap and drive where we're focusing our attention. When we look at how we're interacting, we've moved from what was quite a static directory of feature requests to something where we have the Jadu product team turning up in the comments to be able to give you an idea of where we sit on this and request any extra information that we need to add context to those requests and to understand your needs and how we can better service them. And I think the purpose of this slide is just to let you know that we're not done yet. And our next phase of this is to start again, bringing you into that process and to start sharing our early wireframes, sharing our early ideas of what the requirements we're hearing from you guys, our acceptance criteria are, so that we can validate those before we move into production. So when you see these, feel free to comment your honest opinion, where these are fitting, where these aren't fitting, so that we can progress and we can improve how we work with you. We are starting to deliver items that are going through on feature requests. So there's been a whole host of small changes which have gone through, they've come from feature requests. We have made those changes in our software and they are now being shipped in patches, whether that's things like making the friendly URLs case insensitive, in Jadu Connect, being able to retract email invitations for users when those have been added perhaps in error or email addresses have changed, being able to assign users to cases by email address, adding that search in for homepage widgets when you're on the homepage designer, changing, which fields are mandatory on events, and even things like the widget in use report. So being able to look at when you've got those homepage widgets, perhaps if you've got a long legacy of using Jadu software, there will be widgets in that system that perhaps have been created by a developer who has now left. Maybe the context has been lost. Being able to see actually where those widgets are in use on your system and whether they're safe to remove. We've got more that we're working on. So we will be updating Hello Next to change this, the status of some other requests, but these are the ones which are currently down and still being worked on, where we've got this. I think one of the big items that's coming up is this immediate notification for Jadu Connect integration failures. So being able to see where the integration has failed so that you can quickly intervene without having the customer, the citizen, the end user get in contact with you first. And I think most repeatable question answers are more easily extracted. I can't remember what. Do you mind just giving that?
So at the moment, getting your responses from a repeatable question into Jadu Connect is quite difficult. The idea is that we are redesigning the variable picker so that it's easier to extract that information and push it forward into other systems.
I think there's further changes happening with that variable picker, which link in with that smart mappings work and just smoothing out those processes of creating forms, creating form controls and pages within Jadu Central forms. So, sorry, bit of a whirlwind. Recognise the arms are going all over the place there. Thank you very much for your time.